Hey lovely, so as you see, I'm doing Garnet from Steven Universe. My husband put me on to this character. I basically was like, oh, I need a black character or whatever, and he was like, oh well, I don't know, maybe you could do Garnet. And then I looked at Garnet and I was like, shorty thick, like shorty's thick. I can't do Garnet, but it's a Halloween look. It's gonna be fun and we're gonna get started. Right now I'm doing the leggings, and I'm going to go ahead and make a seamless legging, meaning that there's not going to be no seams on the outside of the leggings, but there will be seams by the crotch and the inside of the leggings. So I'm going to make mine 4 inches high. It's going to come right under the bust, but depending on your measurements, you may need to do less or more, like I said, depending on your torso. So I went ahead and cut that out, and I'm going to get started on the top part. Now I did 2 patterns for this, so you see me right now, I traced it out one side and one half of the shirt, and I'm going to fold it over so I can get an even shirt pattern, because sometimes you trace out both sides and it doesn't come out even, but this way when you trace out one side and fold it over, you get an even pattern for both sides. You could use a nice fitted crop top as well for this. I didn't want to go pull out a crop top, so I just used what was already out of my drawer, and that was this nice fitted shirt. So I have folded it in half to the length that I needed it, and then you basically sew the rest. Also, you don't have to get a fitted crop top, you can get a loose one and then use that pattern with elastic and then kind of like stuff it, because as you see, she's busty and she's hippie. So I was thinking that too, like, oh, I should have did that as well. But anyways, now as you see, I cut that shirt out, but because I wanted to do the patterns on it and cut it out, I traced it again on some paper, and we're gonna go ahead and cut these out separately. And then I did a sleeve pattern. I have multiple videos up on my channel on how to do it, so you can look at those. And then we went ahead and got into the socks. Now I don't really know how to make the socks, so I'm gonna put links to a tutorial on what I use to make my socks down in the description bar below, and off to the gloves. So I traced out my hand and I brought it down enough so that it hits above my elbow. And I'm gonna go ahead and just do the middle finger, trace out the middle finger part and angle it down towards my wrist, and then I'm gonna flip that over and trace out the middle finger part going upwards only, so that it's kind of like you cut it on fold, so you don't have to sew all the way around middle finger, just around the sides of it. And now I'm measuring my wrist, and I'm gonna go to make the back part of the sleeve. So I divided the measurement that I got around my wrist into half, and mine, I have a very small wrist. My wrist is like 6 inches, so that was 3 inches, and then my above my elbow was, I don't remember the measurements, but I know it was 4.5 when I divided it in half. So there we go. I'm gonna cut that out, and I'm gonna tape it together with the glove piece that we already done. So now we get into those pieces that we cut out individually for the shirt, and we're gonna go ahead and add the seam allowance now and cut it out on the fabric. So I'm using a pencil and I'm adding 1/4 seam allowance, but you can add as much or as less seam allowance as you would like, and you're adding seam allowance around the places where you know you're gonna sew those pieces together. That is very important because you do not want your shirt to shrink in size. Remember, seam allowance allows it to fit exactly how you originally cut it out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that for all of the pieces, and I'm gonna cut 2 of them out. Each piece is gonna have 2. So instead of cutting them out individually, you see that I folded my fabric in half, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut them out just like that. So I'll have 2 individual pieces cut out at once instead of like cutting them out one at a time. Now we're off to the pants. As you see, I'm cutting out my pants, and I had already added the seam allowance beforehand, so I'm just cutting it straight how I see it, and I'm cutting out the sock part now as well. This is for the bottom of the foot. And then I'm going ahead into the gloves. So as you see, I had taped those glove pieces together, so there's a front and a back and they're all taped together, so you get one piece, only one piece for the glove. And I'm gonna do the same for the sleeves. I cut out both of my sleeves. You're gonna need 2 sleeves, and I have one for the top of the foot. Like, I went down 3 to 4 inches and I folded it, so I cut out a purple piece out of that, and then the part that I folded over, which is the tip of the toe, I'm gonna cut out a white piece of that, and that's gonna be dyed pink. Right, I didn't get too deep into details, but I just wanted that to show. So as you saw, I put those 2 pattern pieces together, and we're gonna dye some fabric. So that's why I'm cutting pieces out in white. The pieces that I cut out in white, I'm gonna turn them pink and red-ish type of thing. So now we're on to cutting out the pieces that needs to be black. Now, my husband informed me after I bought the fabric that her suit is not black. It's purple, pink, and blue. It's a really, really, really dark blue. But to me, it looked black, so I bought black. Okay, so whatever works for you guys. It's your Halloween costume. It's your look. You make it what you want to. Like I said, add seam allowance is very important. So for the dyeing process, I use Ritz dye, and on the back it says add dish liquid soap and some salt, and I went ahead and did that. So this is going to be the darkest color that I'm doing first. It's supposed to be the dark pink, and I ran it under some hot water. As you see, I'm running it around, mixing it around. You're supposed to let it sit in there. Now, I didn't want it to turn this deep wine color, so I try not to let any of my pieces sit for long. This is the medium white. I pour some water out, and then I pour some fresh water in, and I don't leave the pieces in there for long. The same goes with the light pink. Some water out, pour some water in. As you see, the water is like rising, and I don't leave it in for long. And these are how my pieces turned out, including the socks. So now it's time to put everything together. Right sides facing right sides. I sewed the crotch up first, and now I'm sewing the inseam legs together, making sure the front and back crotch matches up well, and sewing it down towards the end of the leg. And this is how it's gonna look. I serged them, so I didn't really show that, but if you don't have a serger, you could definitely use a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. And I'm gonna go ahead and start on the top. Now the top is very tricky. Doing angles is really hard, so I hope you guys pay attention to this. I'm not the best teacher, and I just kind of figured it out as I went. I laid the pieces how I felt like they should go, and it turned out great. Basically, it's kind of like putting a puzzle together, and it's basically, you have to do it to understand. Like, you really have to do it. Just watching me and not doing it is going to be confusing. So get your fabric, do it along with me, and you'll definitely understand. And the way you pin it is the way you sew it. So once you get to an edge, a pointed edge, you stop your machine, you lift up your presser foot, you rotate it, and you continue to sew. Just make sure you don't catch any fabric on the inside or the outside, because you don't want it to bunch up. Now, your fabric may bunch up anyway because these are sharp edges and it's really hard to sew. Someone that's more experienced will probably do it better, but as you see, I tried my best, and it looks like they're still sharp and angled to me. A little bit more rounded than angled, but for the most part, it's coming out decent. It's coming out swell. Okay, so now I'm going to the neck piece, and I'm gonna sew that, and I'm gonna do the same routine as I did for everything else. Just make sure right sides to right sides are facing, so you're putting the right side of your fabric, the fabric that is going to be showing when you wear this outfit, to the right side of the fabric you're pinning it to. Okay, because that's what's going to be seen, and that's what's going to give you this flawless look that you see here. Hopefully the neck piece is a little bit more clear, because it's not so many rotations and angles, it's just 3 rotations. So we're going to go ahead and see how I did that. And right after I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and sew the last part on. So I'm using some paper towel, because some certain parts I didn't use a walking foot for, and even with the walking foot, the fabric was just getting bunched up and like eaten up by the machine. So as you see, I got to an edge, I put up my presser foot, I rotated it, I made sure no extra fabric was stuck in between it, everything is laying flat, put my presser foot back down, and I continued on. And you just pluck out the paper towel. It's very tedious, it's very annoying, so I didn't do a good job at plucking it out, but ooh, I'm gonna have to find another way or solution to get around this, because I don't like the paper towel thing at all. So now it's on to the last piece. You're doing the same exact thing. It's kind of really repetitive when it comes to the shirt, but I'm gonna show you again on the sewing machine. Once both shirts are complete, it's time to sew them together, and you're going to do that by sewing the shoulders together, and you're going to have the fabric right sides facing right side. Then we're going to go on to the sleeves, and I added shoulder pads because it's supposed to be puffy, but of course I made my sleeves too long, and then when I went to cut it, it was no longer big enough or wide enough to give that puffy sleeve illusion, so it just did not work out the way I wanted it to. But hey, whatever, that's what the shoulder pads are there for. And once you finish on the shoulder pads on, you're going to attach your sleeve to your bodice, and I'm going to go ahead and just attach it the way you see me doing it. I'm kind of just running through this because again, this is also repetitive, and I'm gonna go ahead and sew that with a zigzag stitch or my serger. Anything that you know is gonna have stretch to it, is gonna be in an area that is gonna stretch, use your zigzag stitch. Okay, I went ahead and sewed the pieces as you see. Anywhere where I point to my finger going up and down, that's where you need to sew. I sewed those pieces together, and then I'm gonna go ahead and sew the front part of the sock to the back part, and you see it's all sewn together. And we're going to turn this inside out, and this is the finished result of the socks. So on to the glove. I was so nervous about the glove, oh my gosh, but it turned out great. It was my favorite part, and it was easy. Believe it or not, it was so easy to do. So I'm going to put right sides to right sides, and I'm going to pin that down. Now I'm going to turn it inside out, and I'm going to figure out this finger part. So the finger part was the part that was kind of giving me a little complication, because I'm like, which way does it go? But I figured it out, and I'm gonna hem that right now with a zigzag stitch, and then I'm gonna go ahead and sew right sides to right sides for that middle finger part. I'm gonna hem around the opening, and we're done. Your glove is done. Your glove is done, and I have two of them because you have two hands, right? So now add a zipper, because you are not going to get into this bodysuit without one. Okay, you're not going to. And I believe I was trying to figure out a way without trying to add this zipper. I did not want to add a zipper at all. Now I wanted this bodysuit to not be a bodysuit. I wanted it to be two pieces, but my bodice was way too short to make this two pieces, so I had to make it into a full bodysuit, and I had to add a zipper. So I just cut the shirt down, and that's why I didn't plan for the zipper from the beginning, and I'm adding the zipper on the side like I am doing now, because I really wanted this to be a two-piece costume. I'm trying to make mine close, like the fabric close, so it could look more like an invisible zipper than anything. It didn't work out that way, but still, you get the point. And it's really just gonna be in the back. Your hair is gonna cover it, and if your hair doesn't cover it, it's still gonna be in the back. Mostly people's gonna be watching you from the front. Hopefully they just watching you from the front, you feel me? Anyways, now it's time to attach it. Again, right sides facing right sides. I just stuffed the pants part into the bodice, and I'm just going to pin it all around top of the pants to the bottom of the bodice, and it's going to create a circle. So you sew around that. As you see, I'm showing you this is part you sew around, and this is what it's going to look like once you sewed it. I serged it, but you can use your zigzag stitch, and you're done. You're complete. Your bodysuit, your Garnet bodysuit is complete, and this is what it looks like. So this is the finished results. This is the product here. Look at the Slim Jim Garnet. Okay,
This is Garnet.
all right, I'm
and I'm never
done.
going down at the hands of the likes of you because I'm so much better. And every part of me is saying go get
You
her.
want to see a makeup tutorial because you know she got 3 eyes, just let me know. I didn't put it in this because Shorty didn't feel like it. There's plenty of tutorials up on how to do the face, but I didn't see anybody actually attempt to do the bodysuit. So here you go, you're welcome. Later lovelies, until next time, peace.
Always be twice the gem that you are.